the Steelers' silent move that could change everything. There's a play unfolding behind the scenes in Pittsburgh that few people are paying attention to, but it could define the franchise's next few years. While everyone's focused on playoffs and the current campaign, the Steelers' front office is doing its homework thinking about the future, and not some distant future, it's literally next season. Because as much as Aaron Rodgers is playing well and the team is battling hard in the AFC, there's an inevitable reality knocking at the door. Time passes for everyone, even for the legends. Rodgers signed a one-year contract with Pittsburgh in June, $13.65 million, and right after went on Pat McAfee's show to drop the bomb that no one wanted to hear but everyone knew was coming. "I'm pretty sure this is it. I've played 20 freaking years. It's been a long journey. I enjoyed it a lot, and what better place to finish than with one of the NFL's pillar franchises, with Mike Tomlin, a badass leader, and great guys in a city that expects you to win." Translation: this is the last dance. Rodgers is on his way out, and the Steelers have known that from day one. And here's the problem, or the opportunity, depending on how you look at it. Pittsburgh can't just wait for Rodgers to hang up his cleats and then scramble for a replacement. The NFL quarterback market is wild. You hesitate for a second, miss the timing, and you're stuck for years with retired medalists or projects that don't pan out. The Steelers already went through that when Ben Roethlisberger retired, and they can't repeat the mistake. That's why, while Rodgers is running the current offense, the front office is eyeing the November 4th trade deadline, and there's a specific name in their sights: Anthony Richardson from the Indianapolis Colts. Richardson is the kind of bet that separates brave teams from timid ones. First-round draft pick for the Colts, 23 years old, absurd physicality, sky-high ceiling potential, but also a complicated injury history. He had shoulder surgery in 2023, recently went on IR with a fractured orbital bone, and now he's lost the starting job to Daniel Jones, the experienced veteran that Indianapolis brought in precisely to stabilize things. In other words, Richardson has become a trade candidate, and Pro Football Focus already put him on the list of the 20 most likely names to change teams before the deadline, citing Pittsburgh as a natural destination. The logic makes sense. Richardson's rookie contract has an average annual value of $8.5 million, standard 4-year structure with a 5th-year option in 2027. The Colts have his rights locked until at least 2026 via the rookie scale, unless they negotiate or decline the option. In other words, financially it's manageable for any team willing to invest roster capital and draft compensation in a developing QB. And for the Steelers specifically? It's the chance to grab a kid with massive upside, let him learn for a year under a Hall of Famer, Rodgers, and then hand over the reins when the vet retires. Perfect timing. Bradley Locker from PFF summed it up well. It's possible the Colts want to keep Richardson on the roster, either as insurance for this season or in case they can't retain Jones in the offseason. Still, teams with quarterback questions in March and April might try to get ahead, stockpiling Richardson and his potential several months early. In other words, there's a window of opportunity here. Indianapolis might even want to hold on to the kid, but if they come with a good offer, valuable draft picks, maybe a player thrown in, it's negotiable. Especially if the Colts understand that Jones is their present and Richardson would just create a development logjam. For Pittsburgh, bringing in Richardson would be a high-risk, high-reward swing. You get a young QB, elite athleticism, strong arm, mobility that changes offensive schemes, everything the modern NFL values. Yeah, he has a concerning injury history. Yeah, real NFL game experience is limited. But how many times in life do you get the chance to snag a talented first-rounder available on the market without having to give up a sky-high draft pick? Because if Richardson were in the draft right now, with all the hype, he'd go top 10 easy. In a trade, Pittsburgh can get him for a fraction of the price. And there's the other side of the coin. For Indianapolis, trading Richardson could yield valuable draft assets, clear the quarterback room congestion behind Jones, stabilize the position while protecting cap space tied up in a young player on a rookie deal. If they really believe Jones is the guy, and everything points to yes, since they yanked Richardson from the starting role, then it makes sense to capitalize on the kid's market value now, before injuries or lack of playtime diminish it even more. It's pure business. Maximize return while the asset still has high perceived value. Of course, there's massive risk. Richardson could explode on another team and Indianapolis spend a decade regretting dumping generational talent for a short-term vet. But it could also go the other way. Richardson never consolidates due to recurring injuries, and the Colts made a smart trade at the right time. Football is like that, constant betting on incomplete information. The Steelers, on the other hand, have the luxury of being able to miss. If Richardson doesn't pan out, they look for another solution in the draft or free agency. If he does? Pittsburgh is armed at quarterback for a decade, the most important position in the sport. Mike Tomlin never had a rep as a coach who wastes talent. He took Roethlisberger at his peak, managed the post-Ben transition without blowing up the team, and now has Rodgers to close with a bang before rebuilding. Bringing in Richardson would be a natural continuation of that philosophy. Always one step ahead, always planning, never leaving the franchise stranded at the most critical position. And with Rodgers there to mentor for a year, Richardson would have the perfect lab to learn without immediate starting pressure. Let the vet play, absorb knowledge in practices, study film room with one of the smartest QBs in history. Accelerated development guaranteed. Now, will it actually happen? It depends on three things. 1. The Colts being willing to negotiate. 2. The Steelers making an offer Indianapolis can't refuse, and 3. Richardson agreeing to go to Pittsburgh knowing he'll sit for a year before getting a real shot. Until November 4th, the NFL trade deadline, a lot of water will flow under the bridge. The front offices are playing chess, not checkers. Every conversation matters, every rumor has weight, and both sides are calculating risk versus reward like their jobs depend on it, because they do. Indianapolis has to ask themselves, is Richardson truly the franchise QB we believed he was when we drafted him 4th overall, or are we watching a talented but fragile prospect who might never stay healthy long enough to reach his ceiling? Meanwhile, Pittsburgh is in win-now mode with a defense that's championship caliber and an offense that's one elite QB away from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They can't afford to waste another year of TJ Watt's prime waiting on maybes and hoping Fields magically transforms into a top 10 quarterback. The clock is ticking on their championship window, and they know it. But one thing's for sure, Pittsburgh is moving behind the scenes, talks have already happened, the interest is real. And if this deal goes down, it completely changes the franchise's narrative for the next few years. So, Steelers fan? Do you think it's worth risking on Richardson knowing his injury history, or would you rather wait for the draft and chase a rookie QB without medical baggage? And if you're a Colts fan, would it be crazy to trade a first-round talent so early, or is it a smart move to capitalize while you can? Because let's be real here, Richardson has all the physical tools, the cannon arm, the mobility, the size, the athleticism that scouts drool over, but if he can't stay on the field, none of that matters worth a damn. On the flip side, how many teams passed on Patrick Mahomes because they were scared of the risk? How many franchises are still kicking themselves for not trading up to grab Josh Allen when they had the chance? Sometimes the biggest mistake isn't taking the risk, it's playing it safe and watching another team hit the jackpot with the player you were too afraid to bet on. The difference between a dynasty and a decade of mediocrity often comes down to one bold move at the right moment. Drop your take in the comments below, and if you dig deep NFL analysis without the shallow talk, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell because trade deadline is coming and plenty more bombs are gonna drop before November 4th.